Let us take a look at the issues and challenges of reading a birth chart in Krishnamurti Paddhati, even if you have a very highly accurate birth data. Welcome to this presentation, where for this purpose we are going to make use of Professor Krishnamurti's own birth chart. I have taken this professor's birth data from this book, Notable Persons and Krishnamurti Paddhati. This book is edited by Krishnamurti's own son, Hariharan, who himself is a famous astrologer. So we don't have any doubt or concerns about the birth data being highly accurate and precise. I'm going to share and highlight the issues as well as what may be done to address those issues. If your KP teacher does not raise your attention to these issues, the one that we are going to discuss, then he or she is probably reckless or ignorant or even both. So let me put this note for you. As a good KP student or practitioner, you should be mindful of these issues in the KP natal, KP birth chart, not the horary. The birth data, as mentioned by Shri Hariharan in that book, is this. So we are going to use this data to draw Professor Krishnamurti's highly accurate birth chart, as we assume that this birth data is precise and 100% correct. So I'm going to copy this data and then navigate to Jyotish portal, where we are going to draw Professor Krishnamurti's birth horoscope. We have now navigated to the jyotishportal.com, where we will draw Professor Krishnamurti's chart based on the highly accurate birth information that I copied from the previous screen. So let me first copy the data that we copied from the previous screen. The birth is November 1st, 1908. Time is 12:11. This is the city in Tamil Nadu, and I copied the latitude and longitude. That's also mentioned in that book. And then I also copied the ascendant from that book. That's mentioned at Capricorn 11 degree, and the Anansha value is also copied. So based on this data, let's draw the horoscope. Now, one of the things that you notice about the birth time is that it doesn't have any seconds. It's just 12:11. This kind of a time itself creates some issues or some concerns. And if you are a KP student or a KP practitioner, you know the CSL or the sublord of the cusp, they change very rapidly. They are very dependent on the accurate birth time. So usually when we talk about having a very accurate birth time in Krishnamurti Paddhati, Then we think about a birth time that has hours and minutes and seconds as well. But here it's a little surprising that no seconds are mentioned. But we have to bank on this data because it's given by Mr. Hariharan. Now let's look at the city, Thiruvaj. So we're going to select one city, and then in the subsequent page we have the provision to fix the latitude and the longitude. So let me select this particular city. Now this the longitude and latitude, they are in the decimal place. So that you have to make a note of. So whenever if you want to change any values over here, then you have to put that value in the decimal places, so not in degree minutes. If you click on this the help link over here, so it will give you kind of a steps what you need to do. Simple, like you go to Google and then you suppose if you want the Delhi's latitude and longitude in decimal. So you put a Google search saying asking what are Delhi's latitude and longitude in decimal. So same thing we are also going to do for this city. So let's go to Google. Now when we make a search in the Google uh, to find the coordinates in the decimal places, then this the very first search looks promising as it is giving this value in the decimal place. So let's click on this. And in this page, you can see that the latitude and this thing is given in for this particular city. Professor Krishnamurti's birth city. The latitude and the longitude are given. This is in decimal places. And if you look here, then it is given in the degree and minute and second also. But since we want to have a very accurate birth data, so rather than depending on this, let's make use of the coordinates provided by Mr. Hariharan in that book. And since those coordinates are in the uh, the the degree minute, so we are going to convert into the decimal. So for this, you can make if you search on the Google how to convert the degree minute to decimal, many websites will pop up. So this is one. We are going to make use of this. So it's going to convert degree minute second to decimal degree. That's what we need. So the latitude was, as mentioned by Mr. Hariharan, 10. This was 48 second. It also needs some second. So we'll provide some second value, and then the other coordinate that was 79 and 15. So when we convert, then we get this value 1080 and 7925. So this is what we are going to use for our to make our latitude and the longitude very precise for the exact horoscope of Professor Krishnamurti. So let's go back to our Jyotish portal and make use of these two values, the 1080 and 79.25. So this was 79.25 and this was 10.80. So now we have a proper values that we have provided. So this form is pretty much populated. Now one thing that I would like to draw your attention is towards the enantia. Enantia, right now we'll just use the default value of enantia, which is the KP Swiss. KP enantia as provided by the Swiss ephemera. And the Rahu Ketu, which is a mean value. See, Rahu Ketu has two values or two methods of calculation. One is the mean, and second is the, if you click on the help, you will find this. There is a true and the mean calculation for Rahu and Ketu. Now, we have been, of course, using a mean position for Rahu and Ketu, but there are equally valid reasons for people who are using the true position of Rahu and Ketu. But one thing that you might want to make a note is that this mean and true position of Rahu Ketu is going to impact the sublord. In many cases, it changes the sublord. Usually, the planet sublord will not change because the planets move very slowly. So even if there is a difference in the time of birth, it doesn't really matter. You will see that planet sublord is not changed. But the calculation of Rahu Ketu happens in a way that it can change the sublord of Rahu and Ketu. So this you have to keep in mind. So we are just making use of the mean Rahu and Ketu. And now let's look at the professor's chart. So the first thing is that we will look at the ascendant in ascendant, the degree of the ascendant. So according to the Hariharan in that book, the ascendant is Capricorn. Ascendant is Capricorn 11 degree, and in our case it is 11 degree 0 second. So this, I think that is pretty much accurate. And the star lord and sublord is moon and moon for the first cusp or the ascendant cusp. It is mentioned in that book also. And Enanch also, if you take it the Enanch, it is 20 to 29. Now if you look at the Enanch over here, it is 20 to 29, 14. So Enanch is also matching. Now Enanch is one factor that you have to also take into consideration. So when you are casting the birth chart at that moment, what are the two very important issues? Let me make a note for you. The first issue was the birth time with no seconds, like we saw in this professor's case. It's not mentioned. Second is the mean or true Rahu and Ketu. Third is the Ayanansh. Now, the Krishnamurti Paddhati over a period of time has multiple Ayanansh. People have multiple Ayanansh that they use. There is a KP old one. In the Hariharan's that book, and the Ayanansh that we calculated from the Jyotish portal, and the Ayanansh as calculated for Krishnamurti in that book matches all values matches, and it matches the KP old enhanced. Though here on Jyotish portal we are making use of the Swiss ephemeris, whatever it recommends. I will later in some other video explain about the KP old enhanced, KP new enhanced, and then the Swiss ephemeris enhanced. There is a little very minute difference, but the ascendant sublord can change depending on what enhanced you are going to select. So the very first issue when we are trying to create a birth chart was the birth time, the Rahu Ketu's mean position, and the enhanced thing. Now I have seen many students and practitioners, they don't give a damn to all these things. The moment they get some time of birth and they just kind of jump to, drawing a chart without even caring whether the time of birth might be precise or accurate, or it might have some doubts. Nothing, and they don't care. They just blindly apply KP new or whatever the software is offering. True mean or Rahu, the true or the mean position of nodes. Well, they, like I said, they don't bother about it. Okay, and then they blindly start applying what is called as a KP script. These numbers, the house numbers, and all these things. And at the same time, they make use of the cuspal sublord also. So this is a very risky business, but this is rampantly going on. Neither the students are aware what kind of issues it has, and nor the most of the teachers are bothered to explain it to them. Now let's look at what happens if there is a slight difference in Professor Krishnamurti's birth time. Now we have seen that the ascendant sublord has appeared as moon. If you read Krishnamurti's book, and even in the this particular book where Mr. Hariharan has has done the reading of Professor Krishnamurti's chart, so he has made use of the ascendant sublord moon to describe about the character sketch of the professor. Now let's edit the birth chart data and let's assume that there is maybe a 30-second difference, which is a very minute kind of a difference. Let's say 30 seconds, and let's see what happens. So if you add 30 seconds, just 30 seconds, you see this what happened. Now the sublord has become Mars. Just by adding 30 seconds, and this is no surprise, 30 seconds plus minus is just such a small value. Now the entire character sketch of professor has changed. Initially it was dependent on the moon, and if in that article by Mr. Hariharan, he has made use of the moon by saying it is in Roni Nakshatra and it is this and it is that. So all those great things about the moon has been associated with the professor. But slight time difference, and now it becomes Mars, and Mars will change the whole picture of the character sketch. So can you even depend on this kind of a thing? I don't think that we should even depend on these kind of a thing. The KP fraternity, the KP community must start thinking seriously that in the birth chart reading, the Krishnamurti's principles that apply on the horary chart are not as solid or are not as reliable. So this is the first very important thing that you have to make a note. Similarly, a little bit of time difference will also change the seventh cuspal sublord. Okay, and you see moon has such a small span. Moon as a sublord has a very small span. So if you change the sublord by a few seconds, then change the birth time by a few seconds, then the sublord might become Sun, or the sublord might become Mars, and I'm talking about the about the seventh cusp sublord. So suppose if slight changes in the birth time makes this seventh sublord as sun. So now what happens is, now sun is in the star of Rahu. Sun goes in the star of Rahu. Rahu in Professor chart indicates Mercury, right? Rahu, Rahu is in Gemini. Yeah, Rahu is in Gemini. So Rahu indicates Mercury, which is a dual sign. So some of the students might jump to this conclusion that this person will have multiple marriages because Gemini is a dual sign. So if one is not aware of about who this chart belongs to, if this is, let's say, a blind chart and you are not aware of it, then you are going to make all kind of incorrect prediction. So for this reason, for many years now, I started thinking, and of course I did make a lot of incorrect predictions, a lot of, and some of those were way off the mark. And since I was blindly relying on the sublord of the cusp, and then not even taking into consideration that it could be incorrect. So a lot of wrong and incorrect predictions were offered, and this is what made me think that we can't possibly rely on the birth chart. You hear a lot many times these teachers and instructors saying, there are some very good teachers also. They, of course, they always warn there, or they always draw attention of the student to this fact that for the birth chart, a very accurate birth time is needed. But this alone is not sufficient. When you say accurate, how accurate? And we are looking at the K Hariharans, and we are not sure if the birth time is the same, or it is 30 seconds plus or minus. Just a 30 seconds plus or minus is going to change the whole picture. Your reading is going to be incorrect, and everything is going. Many of these sublords of the cusp are going to change, and on top of it, the inertia issue is there, and then the Rahu Ketu mean and true, this is there. So there has to be a paradigm shift. Some kind of a new thinking is required in interpreting the birth chart within the Krishnamurti Paddhati's framework. So this is one issue. Second is, then, by looking at this chart, is it possible for anybody to say that this chart belongs to a legendary figure in the area of astrology? So if you have no clue that this chart belongs to Professor Krishnamurti, I can challenge you. You will have no idea that this person is the founder of the Krishnamurti Paddhati that changed the whole scene of Vedic astrology in India. So that's another thing. By just looking at the Krishnamurti's rule of just looking at the 2, 6 and 10, 11 is not sufficient. When you look at that great personalities are born, if majority of the planets are signifying 2, 6, 10, 11, this rule is not sufficient, because the range of this kind of or the scope of this combination is not rare. It is so easily seen in many horoscopes that you are unable to figure it out whether this belongs to some very great personality or just a reasonably successful person in life. Okay, if you have to look at and figure it out that this person has an outstanding handle on the astrology, it's not easy. And what Hariharan has done in his book is that to prove that Professor Krishnamurti was an outstanding astrologer, no doubt he was. What he has done is he had made use of the CSL, then he has made use of the Lagna chart, then he has made use of the Western aspect, then he has made use of the our Vedic aspects. Then he has made use of the Gemini astrology. Then he has made use of the Vedic yogas. Okay. And then I think numerology also. So he has not left anything untouched. Now what happens is if you have so many things on your plate, then you can prove anything. There's no what is a big deal. If you have to make use of, if I give you a blind chart of a person and you are ready to make use of all these things, the Katpul Sablot, the Lagna chart, the Western aspect, Vedic aspect, Gemini astrology, the yoga, any and everything, then you can prove or disprove anything in any person's horoscope. That article by Hariharan is not a good article, especially for the KP students. It doesn't help. You can't possibly make it out by reading that article that now you are in a position to assess whether a person is going to be outstanding in a particular field. Would it not be nice that by looking at the chart, at least we can figure it out that this chart belongs to a person who is going to have great achievement, and that too in the field of astrology. So these two things, the great achievement and that too in the field of astrology. And top of it, you don't have to even depend on the 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 sublord of the cusp, because that's a risky business. So in some of my previous videos, I touched upon these topics. For example, the for a person to be skilled in some kind of a languages or some kind of a scripture, astrology, and or writing. In one of my videos, I pointed out about the third house and the ninth house, the connection of the third house and the ninth house within the KP framework without depending on the cusp sublord. So, and in that particular video, I really don't recall. If I find the link, I will put it in the description. But the thing is that even if you are able to identify that, okay, the third and the ninth house within the KP framework are creating a handshaking, that does promise that this person is going to be have some outstanding skill. Now, outstanding skill in what? In the spiritual side, or in the communication side, or in the astrology side, or in the teaching side, or in the creative writing side, because third and the ninth house can indicate all these things. But still it is at least one step closer to what we want to identify in a person's horoscope. Similarly, somebody can be an outstanding film star. So how do you figure it out? By just looking at the chart and applying, KP rules, going beyond the 2, 6, 10 and 11. There are several other noticeable issues if we just tend to stick to the blind KP script reading. Take this example. If we look at the third and the ninth house and we say, okay, this person will have an outstanding skill in whatever field, let's say a creative writing field. But will that person, he or she, will be popular in the public domain? These are two different things. A person having an outstanding skill in any field, it could be music, it could be creative writing, or it could be astrology, or some public communication. But will that person be popular in the public domain or not? Now, if you carefully read Krishnamurti's book, then some of the hints are scattered. The only thing is that they have not been compiled at one place. So the professor has mentioned that the first house and the seventh house, this is what brings in the public recognition. This also I pointed out in one of my videos. So sometimes it comes to my mind that The third house and the ninth house might make a person very fluent or very good at some kind of a creative expression. But unless the first house or in the seventh house and the 10th house, they are not active, then that person will not be recognized in the public domain. Now, if you look at Professor Krishnamurti's chart, you can see that the moon is very strongly indicating the first and the seventh house. And when there is a handshaking between the first and the seventh house, then it brings in a lot of publicity and recognition, public recognition to that person. Now, K. Hariharan has given so much of various rules and regulations to prove that Krishnamurti was a very outstanding genius. He was. But still, when you outside the astrology circle, if you talk to a person about Krishnamurti, they think we are talking about J. Krishnamurti or the not the K.S. Krishnamurti. Usually people think that we're talking about J. Krishnamurti. So Krishnamurti was popular, no doubt, but mostly in the astrology circle. So the first house, the seventh house, and the 10th house. So what kind of weight these houses have. So this alone indicates what kind of a recognition a person will have. Then similarly, if you have to find out the profession of Professor Krishnamurti, now he was working as an inspector. That is what is mentioned in this article. That he was inspecting jail and he was working for government, and he was some kind of an officer. That is what he did as a part of his career. If you look at the 10th sublord, the sublord of the 10th cusp and all that, you will not be able to relate his service with the combination, unless you read K. Hariharan's article, where you have to stretch your imagination and create a mixed bag of yogas from all Western, Eastern astrology books and then prove it that he was working in that thing. So my idea is that the KP framework, especially in the natal part, the birth horoscope part, we should be going beyond the cuspal sublord, and we should also not be blindly just following the script thing, and we should also go beyond these numbers. There's a lot of potential, lot of things that are unexplored in the within the planet signification itself. And once in a while, when I tend to find something, then I'm sharing this video. See, this video is not about self glory. I'm not trying to prove that that I have reached some milestone or something. My idea is that the KP fraternity, the KP community, and it has a very good intelligent people who now follow Krishnamurti Paddhati. They practice Krishnamurti Paddhati. Unless they look carefully at these things that I have raised, these issues that I have raised in this video, when they start identifying that yes, these are the issues, then only they will start investigating and expanding their horizon, that what need to be done now. And I am very sure that within the KP framework itself, very hidden kind of yogas are available that the KP community will be able to identify, and that is what will make the natal chart, the birth chart reading of Krishnamurti Paddhati more reliable. And of course, I mean, people who are teaching KP astrology or to the students formally or even casually, it is their responsibility to encourage. That's what I personally think, that some of these very good, meaningful and learned KP teachers, and they should definitely encourage and motivate the students that they should start exploring these the the yogas in Krishnamurti Paddhati and should not be dependent on these traditional concept of the sublord of the cusp and the blind KP script reading. That's not going to help. That was the purpose of creating this video. If you have some suggestions, do write in the comment box. So that's all in this video. Thanks for watching.